In the first part, I shared what engine and why I chose for my e-bike. In the second part, I will tell you about more parts. I ordered most of the parts from China, mostly from AliExpress. So to achieve the intended power I had to choose which controller to use. In terms of price-performance ratio, I chose the Sabverton controller, model 72150. This controller has a maximum power of 150 amps. So multiplying the battery volts by the number of amperes and we get the maximum motor power. So 84 volts times 150 amps equals 12,600 watts. However, there may be some loss of power through the wires and connectors, so the final power may be slightly lower. I was also thinking about a more powerful 200 amp controller. However, due to the fear of overheating the engine and possibly the shorter distance traveled, I abandoned this idea. So I bought this controller at a sale at a very good price. The controller has Bluetooth and the ability to control it from a phone. However, my selection did not have a speedometer included, so I ordered it from another company. I also ordered a bike seat from China. I hope it suits my needs. I even ordered a hub for the front wheel. I decided to make the front wheel in my own country. However, I ordered a 32-hole hub, even though the standard is 36 holes, making it a little harder to find a rim for this hub. This hub has an attachment to one brake disc. And as it turned out later, it would be better if the hub had a brake disc holder on both sides so that it could fit 2 brake discs for even better braking. I bought a full twist throttle for an electric bike. However, I doubted my decision because it turned out that the handle was very sensitive, has low resistance and a small angle of rotation. And as it turned out later, I was right, but I'll tell you about that later. I also ordered a speed mode switch button. This button connected to the controller allows you to control the maximum bike speed. The speed of each position can be set through the controller configuration. For example, the first position may be 25 km per hour, the second position 45 km per hour, and the third unlimited. After looking at other people's experiences, I decided to order an e-bike hydraulic disc brake electricity-powered control shifter from China. These hydraulic 2-cylinder brakes have an electric sensor which, when the brake is pressed, interrupts the power supply to the engine or activates regeneration. The controller has 2 connectors for connecting the brake sensor. The first, low brake, cuts off the engine power when the brakes are applied. The second, high brake, turns on regenerative braking with the engine. And as it turned out later, the power of these brakes just isn't enough for such a high speed and such a big weight bike. So then came the LED lights. Illuminates quite well with multiple brightness and flicker modes. I ordered the turn signals to front, but I didn't install them anyway because I rarely drive on the country roads. The next purchase is a voltage converter that converts voltage from 84 volts to 12 volts. Lower voltage is required for headlights and other things operating from 12 volts. 2-position ignition key, turns the controller on, or off. Next came 2 203mm brake discs. However, later it became clear that, like the brakes, the efficiency of the discs is not high enough, so they had to be replaced later. Rear view mirror for the left side. Silicone wires for the wiring. Some connectors. 6-gauge silicone wires for battery connection so it can deliver 150 amps. I also ordered a chain wheel. However, later it turned out that it is just too big and does not fit to the frame. So I bought another at a local store. Next came mountain bike steam and handlebar. Battery cell constructor holder for battery assembly. And as it turned out later, unfortunately with this holder the battery does not fit into the frame. This is pure nickel plate for battery cell welding. Next came the DNM rear shock absorber 220mm. When I tested it later, this shock absorber was quite good. You can adjust the softness and bounce time as well as adjust the spring to your weight. Next I ordered mudguards, and some are from a fat bike. This is Ammeter voltage watt meter. This device is designed to measure battery voltage, and power usage from the battery to the controller. Pedals with a rough surface to prevent the foot from slipping. As it turned out later, the non-slip material detaches over time. So I bought a new soldering iron. And this is heat-resistant insulation for the battery. Battery charging socket for currents up to 10 amps. Waterproof light, turn switch. I also ordered thumb throttle. This item can have a dual purpose. The first can be used as in throttle, the second can be used as an e-brake when it can be used to control the braking force of a motor. Battery cell charger and tester. Cheap battery cell welding machine from China. Not very powerful but enough to do the job. Finally came the Enduro e-bike frame. I choose from several frames, and this is a newer model. Other models are mainly from metal, which means higher strength but at the same time a higher weight of the frame. While my chosen frame has a lot of plastic, which results in a lower weight but at the same time a higher price. After driving tests, this frame is not bad at all. However, there are also disadvantages. For example, when placing plastic covers on the frame, gaps remain somewhere. When assembling parts, some things had to be corrected. I will finally be able to start the assembly work. At the same time, the engine arrived, which I talked about in the first part. I would also like to add that I ordered it with a 19-inch motorcycle wheel, because such power and a relatively heavy weight bike wheel may not withstand. The engine itself weighs quite a bit, and the downside here is that the mass distribution will be uneven and most of the weight will go to the rear wheel. However, there are pros, as the engine is directly transmitting power to the wheel, so no need to worry about the chain. Gears are also unnecessary, because it is very difficult to pedal such a big mass bike, so the pedals are basically only used if I run out of battery power. End of part 2. In the next part I will show you more parts and some assembly work.